Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the Board of Commissioners for the Canaveral Port Authority September 28, 2022 to order. And if we'd stand, I'm going to ask Captain Murray to lead us in a prayer. And not in a prayer, but in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start on the formal agenda, I'd like to mention that we recently lost one of our port commissioners from the past. Joe Matheny, who was an attorney in Titusville, served 16 years on the Canaveral Port Authority, served in all positions. His talent as a visionary was useful in encouraging in the growth of Canaveral Port to the status that it is today. He always had the port's best interest in mind, worked diligently, not only in other endeavors, but also working to make the Port Authority. So I'd ask if you would, we take a moment of silence in honor of our previous Port Commissioner. Okay, thank you. First item on the agenda, well, let me introduce our ambassadors that are here. Mike Gautreaux, Robbie Roberts, and Bobby Sachs. Thanks for being with us today. We thank you for everything that you do for the port. First item is approval of the agenda. Chair would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Been moved in second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Agenda's approved. Next item is approval of the minutes of our last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's approved. John, do you want to do the service award before we get into the time certain? That's it. Well, yeah, okay, there's time for that. It's 9:15.
We moved the service awards to the end of this month, and I can do the CEO report if you want, because we've got 8 minutes.
Okay. I mean, I had 4 or 5 different agendas, so
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, John.
We're going to start out a little bit different this month. We just had Hurricane Ian pass through last week, so thought we'd just give a bit of an overview of what happened here at the port. This time lapse on the right-hand side of the page is interesting. Our folks put that together, but it really shows the uncertainty of that storm as it came across Cuba and changed course to the south and moved right over Fort Myers, of course, and ultimately moved right over Port Canaveral. Past us is a strong tropical storm with gusts peaking near 70 miles an hour. It was a multi-day impact to our port operations due to the rapidly changing conditions. And throughout the event, we were in close coordination with federal, state, and local partners. The alert set by the Coast Guard started early on Saturday, the 24th at 8 a.m. We went into condition whiskey, didn't go to X-ray until Monday at 4 p.m., Yankee Tuesday at noon, and Zulu at midnight on the 27th. And of course, Zulu is full closure of the port. We activated Port Canaveral's incident command structure and passed notifications to tenants, guests, public at large. A lot on our social media, pushing out messaging. JD Park closed on Tuesday, the 27th. All campers exited by 5 p.m. and the park was totally closed at the end of the day. And the Brevard County Hurricane Warning set was on 9/28, which was Wednesday, at 11:34. Get all these times mixed up. It was a busy week. We, of course, for preparedness, pre-stage supplies, anticipated in response equipment. We did a pre-positioned survey vessel for rapid response post-storm, 2 vessels actually. Coordinated cargo and cruise operation changes with vessel priorities when the return started. We coordinated with Marina commercial fishing vessel needs. We did not issue an evacuation notice on the Ian's approach forecast, and due to the forecast and minimal surge threat to the port. And when I talk surge threat, it's the deep water surge coming in off the ocean, which has always been our worry with the marina. There may have been some communication issues on this, and we're going to do a deep dive on it afterward and make sure that the message is clear next time. So it's something we're aware of and we're working on. We did issue shelter-in-place order for all the vessels under 500 gross tons. And just to make sure everyone's clear, anything under 500 gross tons is not something the Coast Guard mandates evacuation of the port. That comes back to the Port Authority. So it's over 500 tons. That's full jurisdiction of the Coast Guard. So there are some issues here we're just going to sort out. Part of it, the confusion came from the statute that was just recently changed in Tallahassee that gave us additional authority. And we're going to have that fixed within the next week. So just to let everyone know if there's any concerns on that. Seaport Canaveral ceased operations on Thursday at 7 a.m. There's certain aspects of their operation, even if the winds are okay to maneuver, the pressure system in the tanks has to be relieved, so they were not able to conduct operations at that point in time. And we provided real-time port updates to changing operations on our website throughout the event. On the recovery, we did landside, waterside assessments completed Friday, the 30th. Started early in the morning. We had sonar surveys of inner and outer reach, harbor, turning basins, berth boxes. We did confirm some minor shoaling and one aid to navigation. ATON is aid to navigation position. One buoy was off station. It did not affect operations and restart. And there is some minor shoaling in the sand trap, which is it could be from this storm. It may have been building up over time, but we were doing the survey, so it was noted at this point in time, and it does not affect operations at this point, but it's something that we will highlight with the Corps of Engineers at their next operation here at the port. We worked with Florida Power and Light for power restoration on the north and south side. We did lose power at a couple of locations. We also developed and activated a cruise and cargo vessel arrivals. We had 7 ships and a lumber ship on 7 cruise ships on Saturday. It's the first time we've had 7 ships in the port. And if you're asking how we did that with 6 terminals, we had 1 ship come in, debark only, the MSC Divina, and then she shifted to another berth to do some repairs that they needed to do. And then the Carnival Liberty came in, did a debark right after it. So we hot seated that 1 terminal with 2 ships in the same day. We reopened within 16 hours of recall with minimal draft restrictions, and then on Monday the 3rd, after full survey and assessment, we reopened to full operations at 11:30 a.m. The impacts, north side we had power loss at the Jetty Park, we had north side operations power loss at the IMOC. We got that restored fairly quickly. We had power outage at Cruise Terminal 3, Jetty Park, Transmontane. We had initially thought we were going to have to start with CT3, and we did start with CT3 operations prep for the ships on generator power, and the power was eventually restored, and it was no longer an issue. We had some issues at Jetty Park that I'm still not sure they're 100% resolved. The fishing pier is still closed. We're doing some repairs out there on that right now. I'll touch on that in a second. Cruise Terminal 6, we had ground transportation awning and a lightning pole. 10 and 2, we had canopies. North Cargo 1, 2, and 4, we had minor landside erosion that was behind the seawall on the dock side, just water erosion. 5 and 6, we had security fencing down. Jetty Park, we had damage to the pier fencing and pavilion. The pier itself had some electrical issues and some concrete issues and fencing issues, and those are all the items that we're fixing this week, and our intention is to be back open tomorrow or Friday latest, I guess. Rodney Ketchum boat ramp, we had a floating dock damage, minor damage, and of course large amounts of vegetative debris. In the channel, the minor shoaling I mentioned already near the sand trap, and we had over 2,800 news reports, and all the outlets were focusing on us. It was a busy media event for us as well. So with that, that's pretty much the recap of the storm, and if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them now before we jump into our normal report.
John, I'd like to take a second here. Having taken my ship into an island that had been destroyed by a hurricane, having done that and having to do the recovery operations, I want to call out both our sheriff and our chief fire chief here. They have, I talked to the sheriff this morning. He's got his people down over Southwest Florida, and he's done a great job in his recovery efforts. But also the fire chief's got people down there, and when power comes on, the fires start up, and they're supporting it down there as well. And I think a shout out and a round of applause for our people from Brevard down there getting the job done from on the Tidewater port here. Thanks,
Absolutely.
guys.
Yep.
Thanks, Chief.
Round of applause. Yeah, that strike team left Friday morning, so it was no hesitation in getting out of here quickly. So it's great. No other questions? I'll move in to cruise. Oh, sorry.
No, I just said thanks for that update on the hurricane issues.
Fortunately for us, it was a relatively minor event, and the wind was really blowing here on Thursday afternoon at around noontime. It looked like things were getting calmer, and then at around 2 o'clock, it all broke loose around here, and it was nasty for about 4 hours. So anyway, okay. Whoops. I get this right here. I missed the numbers. Oh, sorry. Rest of the story on the report, on the hurricane. The Divina canceled Thursday sailing. These are the cancellations on the cruise ships. That was a 3-day that was canceled. These will all be reflected in our current fiscal year post-October numbers. The Norwegian Getaway, which was supposed to come in from New York and start a new voyage back out of Port Canaveral, home port, they canceled Thursday and pushed that sailing for a week. Mariner of the Seas postponed their sailing to Sunday from Friday to Sunday. So that voyage continued. The Disney Wish canceled Friday's sailing and came in Sunday and laid overnight and went out Monday on a normal sailing. Carnival Liberty canceled her 3-day sailing. And the Independence of the Seas canceled their Friday sailing, postponed until Sunday. So we really had 4 cancellations. None of them were major cancellations. 3 days, 3 days, and 1 7 days. So that was all we had for impacted cruise ships. And we, as I say, had 7 ships on Saturday, and everybody's back in normal operations by Sunday, Monday. So sorry about that. Now I'm back into the cruise update. This is through August. We had 734 ship calls, 3.7 million multi-day passengers. We currently have 10 home-ported vessels. The MSC Meraviglia will be back to Port Canaveral on the 13th of October to replace the MSC Divina for the winter season. And then at the end of the month, the Carnival Magic comes back. She was a seasonal vessel last year, so she'll be back to us on October 31st, which will become our 11th home-ported vessel. We have had 10 consecutive weeks in the up to the end of August that had over 100. It's into September. I'm sorry. That had over 100,000 passenger movements per week, 10 weeks in a row. So it's been very, very strong on passenger traffic. Toward the end of September, we started to see a little bit of fall off down into the 90s, and that's largely due to the seasonality and kids back in school, and it's normal this time of year that cruises aren't as strong during hurricane season. So we're looking for things to pick up again in the next several weeks. On the cargo side, 507 ship calls. Cargo has been robust this year. Our revenues at 12.8 million, which that's through August, which was already a record for the year. So when we report September, it's going to be another record year for cargo. Same on the tonnage side, 6.1 million. We did 7 lumber vessels with more than 100,000 tons of lumber in the month of August. We had heavy space components discharged at North Cargo Berth 8, weighing over 100,000 pounds each. These were, I think I can say, for one of our, wasn't SpaceX, it was Blue that had these components come in, and that was a valid use of North Cargo 8 for multi users of the facilities. We had Blue and SpaceX there at the same time, which was interesting. We also exhibited at last week at Breakbulk Americas in Houston. We had two folks over there for that, Samantha and Jenny Simmons were there, and unfortunately, they had to drive back because they couldn't get a flight back to Florida, so they rented a car and came back. So kudos to them for a 15-hour drive. On the communications side, Jetty Park, we have an improvement grant which will allow us to make some renovations to the pavilion and campground. We got some local media coverage on that, and it reached over 13.8 million people. And that was one grant that we were awarded that the media learned about it before we were actually notified of it. So we didn't comment too heavily on that one initially. But we also had Jetty Park Improvements Grant. I just mentioned that. We had a lot of local media coverage on the social media. We had the Norwegian Joy arrival. She was here on a port of call. First time the ship's ever been here. It was a ship that was uniquely designed for the Chinese trade that's been redeployed into North America now. And we presented the plaque to the 2022 State of the Port will be on November 9th at 10:30, Cruise Terminal 1, West Lobby. That's on the bottom floor. On a federal government relations update, we had the Coast Guard Port and Waterway Safety Assessment, the PASA, on September 8th and 9th. That was a two-day workshop for Port Canaveral Maritime Community. As you recall, this is a reaction to some of the incidents we've had with the safety zones offshore and the Harmony of the Seas incident that happened earlier this year, and we're looking for a better way to manage marine traffic in and out of Port Canaveral when to coexist with the launch schedule that's accelerating every day. So the idea is to identify safety hazards, eliminate risk levels and risk mitigation measures. The next step is the Coast Guard initiating a port access route study, which is a PARS, started October 1st, and that will evaluate safe access routes for the movement of vessel traffic proceeding to and from Canaveral, and to study existing vessel routing and determine whether additional routing measures are necessary. The whole idea in this is to establish safety fairways or runways, however you want to describe it, a highway into Port Canaveral that will be outside, to the extent possible, of the launch safety zones, which will allow maritime traffic to flow in and out of the port, not just ships, but fishing boats, sport fishermen, anybody that's in that channel will be in a safe zone and not have to be as concerned with launch safety zones every time there's a launch. Yes, sir.
And then the right whale issue is going to get thrown on top of this, right?
Of course. I think that's my next slide. But yes. We also had U.S. Customs and Border Protection Roundtable here on September 13th. Donald Stakes, the Executive Director of Mission Support, Office of Field Operations and CBP Headquarters, was in town. He has just taken this assignment starting in July. We also had Director Vernon Foray, CBP Field Operations, based in Miami, and he oversees Tampa, Miami, and Orlando, which includes us field offices. Florida Ports Council leadership was here as well at the meeting, and we had the port officials from all around the state joining on a Zoom call. So we discussed ongoing joint efforts to keep ports operating securely and efficiently, and also discussed some of our outstanding issues that some of us have with CBP and how we can work better together. It was a great meeting. We got some good relationships started and a commitment to get together and work through some of these issues in the future. So next we have the right whale. Proposed whale rule. It will modify the seasonal management areas along the U.S. Atlantic East Coast and expand seasonal speed zones, and it will affect all mariners operating vessels over 35 feet to and from Port Canaveral for about a 5-mile distance. The deadline for submitting public comment has been extended to October 31st. We as the Port Authority will be submitting comment. There's a lot of comments already submitted, and there's a lot of small boat members to Boat US and National Marine Manufacturers Association, boat manufacturers, and there's a lot of weighing in on this particular rule because of the impact it's going to have, not only on recreational fishermen or recreational boaters, but just in general for anyone that's passing through those zones. So deadline again is October 31st. Did I see a question? No? Okay. All right. Another update, we had the Florida Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Nunez on a port visit on September 16th. We refer to it as a rolling briefing and tour of port facilities. Lieutenant Governor Nunez is oversees a lot of different parts of space, and she's the chairman of Space Florida. She was passing through town on an event that was up in Volusia County, and happened to fly through Orlando and came to Port Canaveral and just wanted a quick tour and see how we were doing things here. It was a pretty good day. We had a booster on the dock. We had lots of operations with SpaceX. Blue was moving those heavy lift pieces around with our mobile harbor cranes. It was a pretty good visit for her. We also had some of our lead customers, Seaport Canaveral, Ambassador Services, a customer, one of the lumber customers, Sago Welco and Global Shipping, and they spoke to her about the requirements of Port Canaveral for their businesses and the needs and our lack of space, et cetera. So it was a pretty good overview of everything we're doing here at Port Canaveral, and she was only here for just an hour at the most, and went off to her other event. So that was the 16th. We also have the Florida Local Support Grant Program, Joint Legislative Budget Commission. That's the $760,000 grant awarded for Jetty Park improvement. It's the one I mentioned a few minutes ago. It'll renovate the park building, upgrade 23 campsites. Next steps will be the Executive Office of the Governor submits budget amendment no later than September 30th, followed by grants funds disbursement. Representative Fine was a sponsor for this particular support grant.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we call him out and appreciate that.
We do. We
yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
his support.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
always been very supportive of Port Canaveral, and this was his particular sponsorship. So,
Thanks.
Jetty Park, we've had a daily average of 257 vehicles, campground occupancies 55%, which is okay for this time of year. We're preparing for the busy season. We've got a food truck agreement being finalized to standardize food truck operations at the port. We've got $190,000 FSTED grant awarded for new cameras in Jetty Park and port entrance. This is a federal grant that was awarded every year. We tend to get a small federal grant for port security, and this year's, and Bill or Mike will be talking about it later, is dedicated to our camera upgrades. Let's see, upcoming events. We have a kids fishing clinic on October 22nd. On the environmental side, September 16th, Disney Cruise Line and Disney Wish Crew were at Allen Shepherd Park in Cocoa Beach doing a cleanup. And on the 17th, volunteers from Viera High School, Edgewood Junior and Senior High School, and Via Space at Jetty Park did another cleanup. So as you can see, it's been a very busy month. Here's a picture of one of our support boats with the Norwegian Joy, I believe, in the background. Any questions?
Any questions for Captain Murray?
Lot of info there. A lot of things happened in the last month. We've been very busy, so. Okay.
Okay,
All right, well,
thanks
thank
for
you.
staying on top of it, you and your staff. Okay, time certain. Proposed fiscal year 2023 operating budget and capital budget, tariff and foreign trade zone modifications. Mike Poole and Pat Poston's going to be involved in this. Maybe.
I can. We need to, but I think Mike's handling it.
What was the question?
No question or comment.
Okay. So, good morning. So,
Morning.
this item is requesting your permission for the operating budget, capital budget, foreign trade zone modifications, and modifications or update to our tariff as well. For full transparency purposes, this is the second reading before, that the board is hearing. The first one was August 17th, where we went into more detail. Each board member received individualized budget briefings. Then it was done publicly on August 17th, and then this presentation is much more condensed, and it's going to be requesting your approval. The only item that has changed in the budget that you have before you from the last time it was presented on August 17th is we found out that we were awarded a federal grant for information technology purposes, IT. It's a federal operating grant. It's going to be over a 3-year period, and it's going to help augment our IT support services. And so we've budgeted that in this budget. So what does that mean? How does it The final numbers, operating revenues remain the same at 154 million. Operating expenses increased slightly to 108.9 million, so they went up almost 400,000 as reflective of that grant. Operating income is 45 million. Non-operating revenues are 20.5 million. They went up by approximately the cost of the reimbursement of that grant, 75% federal grant, so $300,000. So those non-operating revenues are $20.5 million. The lion's share of that are the ARPA funds that we continue to get. The third and final year will be next year. Non-operating expenses stayed the same at 12 million, which produces the last item here, which is an addition to net position for debt reduction and port development. So that means after all the money comes in and then you spend it for operating expenses and non-operating expenses, it leaves $53 million that is left over for us to either pay down our debt or set aside for capital projects. And right now that money is earmarked for capital projects. So we are requesting your approval of this operating budget and capital budget, the tariff revisions, and the foreign trade zone revisions. I'm here to answer any questions.
It's noted for public comment. I don't know that there is any public comment on this item.
Okay, I'd like to comment, just because this is approving our budget for next year. And it's what's the most robust one we've ever had, and this port's ever had. And what I want to call out, particularly though, in addition to the efforts that are shoring up our position and attending to our debt, all those really good things, I want to call it on the capital project side. You know, the fact that maybe the numbers, total numbers, isn't as much as we have had in the past recently, because we've been building terminals, but the whole construct of aggressively paying attention to a lot of little jobs that need to get done around here and spending money on it because we can is really good. And I want to just call it out and again look forward to having a year with some money in our pocket to spend it the way it's supposed to be spent. So good job with that.
And
Yeah.
record debt reduction too, is that right?
Record debt reduction, yes, Commissioner Hadaway. And Commissioner Justice, to your point, the capital budget earmarked next year is $76 million. So that is, it is spread amongst many different projects. My previous presentation went over that. It's everything from dredging to road resurfacing to terminal improvements, canopy replacements. It's across the board, but it is $76 million, of which will require $53 million of our own funding. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve our fiscal year 23 operating budget, capital budget, resolution 2022-005 EXE3, the proposed fiscal year 23 tariff and foreign trade zone modifications.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The budget and the other items are approved.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman,
Still on deck.
all right, I'll just stay up here, go through my financials. It'll be the full month of July, the full month of August. And Troy's got it up here for me. So at the last meeting, it was an early board meeting, it was August 17th, we presented the full June financials, revenues and expenses, and we just presented July revenues only, not the full month, because we hadn't closed it out. Now here at this meeting, we're able to present all of July revenues, expenses, and all of August revenue and expenses as well. I'm going to focus the bulk of my comments, though, here because it's an October 5th board meeting, mainly on August. So for the year to date, 11 months into our year, we have $116 million in total revenues, $16 million above budget. And noteworthy, our previous record year, which was FY19, last full year of having uninterrupted revenues, we had a record year of $106 million. 11 months into this year, we're already $10 million above that number. So at the, when we present the September numbers to you, the full 12 months at the end of this month, you'll see that we're going to significantly surpass our record year in FY19 of 106 million. But interestingly, we're $10 million above that just 11 months into our year. On the expense side of the house, at $88.9 million, that's 661,000 below budget. Now, what happened in the month of August? John touched on some of these. Revenues were 12.9 million, 3.8 million above budget. Why? You had 66 cruise calls, 465,000 passengers. You're going to see that's the second highest level of passengers that we've had here. July, we had over 500,000. In August, we had 465,000. So in addition to that, cargo, very strong month, 679,000. So that's 6.1 million tons, 679,000 came through in the month of August. Fuel, limestone, lumber, slag. You'll see the lumber ships that John was talking about. This ship to your right here is North Cargo Berth 8, our most recently completed cargo berth a couple years ago. John showed you Blue Origin discharging, or we were handling some of their cargo there. You look at this day here, it's a multi-purpose berth. We have lumber there. So we have had everything from port-o-call ships, space cargo, and this day you can see we had lumber that sat there. So space is becoming tight for us, and that's why we can't wait for North Cargo Berth 3 to be completed in April of next year. The July revenues, 14.1 million, very strong month. August revenues, 12.9 million. You'll see all the items are either at or above budget, including cruise passengers. We're consistently beating that budget forecast that we budgeted at 75%. The year-to-date numbers, you'll see there's the 116 million, the 16 million above. You see all line items at or above budget. Cruise at 116 million, 16 million above budget. 734 home port of calls, 3.7 million passengers. Here you see it on a month-by-month basis, and these are the last 2 months that I said were very strong here. In blue is the actual. You see that 501,465,000 passengers on a month-by-month basis. So very strong last 2 months. This is showing that we're at 3.7 million. I'm forecasting us to come right in around budget, about 4.1 million tons, 4.1 million passengers. On cargo, I'm showing revenues at 16.9 million. John was showing it at 12.8 million. What's the difference of that 4.1 million? I'm also reporting the rent component that these cargo tenants pay. So when you look at rent as a whole, it's about 8.2 million, 4.1 that's paid by non-cargo customers, 4.1 million by cargo customers. So cargo, what does it bring to the table to the port? It's $16.9 million all in. We budgeted 13.9 million, so you're about 3 million above budget. There's your 6 million tons. And who's exceeding prior year numbers significantly? It's fuel and it's lumber. Same story as the previous ones. The last items on the revenue side, leases, recreation, miscellaneous, are all at or above budget. And that $16 million that we were ahead of budget equates to 16%, so very strong. On the expense side, we at 88.9 million, we're 661,000 below budget. And we have some departments here that have some positive variances here. So we're going to have to do some budget transfers within 9 departments. And as long as we don't exceed the total amount that's authorized, the board has delegated John the ability to do department-to-department transfers. We will be doing that after I review those with John. And then as the board authorized, we'll notify you at the end of the month, you know, what was the amount of the transfers and the reasons why. But we'll be taking care of that at the end of the month. And how does it flow down to the bottom line? Revenues are 116 million, operating expenses at 88, produces a positive operating income of $27 million, non-operating revenues $39 million, bulk of that being those ARPA funds. Non-operating expenses of 11 million produces a positive income before capital contributions of $56 million. very strong 11 months, and we think we're going to end the year we know it's going to be a record year. We're already passing the record 11 months into this year.
But you and your staff have still been conservative in your budgeting process, haven't you?
Yes, this year, and we feel like next year as well. The budget that the board just approved for FY23, we feel like we're being conservative there as well.
Okay, any questions to Mike regarding the financial report update? Not, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the statistical report, aging in the list of bills. I think those were all.
Move to accept the statistical report, aging report, and list of bills for both July and August 2022, as well as approving the list of disposals, the legal bills, and the commissioner expenses for July and August 2022.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Justice. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
They're approved. Accepted and approved.
Thank you.
At this point, let me make a correction. In the beginning, I referred to that this meeting was for September 28th, which was last week, because anyway, actually, today's meeting is October 5th, 2022. I just wanted to make sure the record was correct. Our favorite part, second favorite part, capital projects update.
Thank you, Mr.
Bill
Chairman.
Crow.
Morning, Mr.
You
Chairman.
want to
Morning,
jump over that? I
Commissioners.
made all kinds of notes so I wouldn't miss you.
I made sure I stood up too. So I know Mike's presentation is incredibly interesting, and he shows the budgets, and I get to cover some of the capital
spend the
project
money.
investments that the port is doing. So I went through the same issue yesterday with making sure I had all of the dates updated in the presentation. So we are on the October 5th capital projects update. I'm going to start with North Cargo Berth 3. That project's been underway since last September, believe it or not. It's kind of hard to believe it's been a year, but we have completed, if you recall, the A-frame pile system that we talked about. That cap has been completed. All those piles are driven. All of the relieving platform piles have been driven. There were 356 of these concrete piles that have been driven, and there'll be a concrete slab cast on top of that. That is the relieving slab. We are now in the main bulkhead construction, so that combi wall, that combination wall, these are the king piles. They're driven down to a tip elevation of -110. So each pile is about 120 feet long. We've done about 640 linear feet of that. We'll go back in and we'll install the infill sheets in between these king piles, and then ultimately we'll tie this system back to the A-frame cap that we've already installed. So good progress is being made on this project. We hope to be dredging in roughly December timeframe. So when we hit dredging, that means that that entire combi wall will be installed and tied back. We're spending a little bit of time working on this system over here that is a catwalk that connects several 84-inch diameter monopile mooring dolphins, and that expands the use of this pier, which is North Cargo Pier 2, and also our North Cargo Berth 3 project. We'll be able to utilize those mooring points. And you see that's the structure right there. This is a temporary template that has been installed using some soldier piles. And then there's a couple of examples of the permanent 84-inch piles that have been driven in that area. So we're still on track to be complete in April of next year. Moving on to the mobile harbor crane purchase. It was authorized at the August commission meeting. Purchase price with the base bid plus all the add-ons that we obtained were $7.4 million. And we are due to take delivery of that crane at the end of next calendar year, so roughly December timeframe, November, December 2023. And you can see a few examples of the type of crane that we're buying. We're buying an LMH 600, and they have a couple of those there on the factory. We did have our project kickoff, and the first factory visit was held the week of September 18th. We had a ceremonial contract signing there at the Rostock facility on September 20th. So I just want to send a public thank you to our host, Leopold Berthold. He's the managing director of all things maritime that Liebherr makes, ship-to-shore cranes, in our case, the mobile harbor crane and other ancillary equipment. So it's a pleasure to meet him. And also Andreas Mueller, he is the sales director for mobile harbor cranes. So it was a pleasure to be over there. And I continue to be impressed by the quality, accuracy of the German engineering. Their production facility, we couldn't take any pictures inside their facility, but it was fantastic. It was really neat to see how they assemble these huge cranes out of raw steel and other components. Moving on to a few other projects, we've got an upcoming recoating, repainting of the State Road 401 flyover bridge. So it's a port-owned bridge. It's inspected by us, by our contractor every couple of years as required by DOT, and it's in need of a new paint job. You see that in the photo on the right. There's areas of rust and scale that we need to remove. We'll media blast. We'll paint it. This is continuing. This is consent agenda item 1H. And it is a proposal from W&J for $762,000 to do the media blast and recoat that bridge. We're going to need approximately 70 days to complete that work. And there's going to be periodic lane closures throughout that, so we'll coordinate closely with Public Safety and Security and the communications group to make sure we get tenant notifications out to the community. Next one is Terminal 5 and 8 concrete apron repairs. Both these aprons are old and have areas that are breaking up and causes a lot of difficulty for the forklifts to traverse these areas. So we authorized this at the August meeting. Good progress is being made. I put this example up to give you an idea of some of the state of disrepair that areas are in. What we do is we go around and we paint those areas. There's another example. I want you to pay close attention to that inlet in the background, because now we've recast the frame around that inlet and the adjacent pavement and up to the slop drain, and so you can see how it's just a much smoother transition for the forklift traffic. So we got about 1,000 square foot on Terminal 5 pier or apron, and about 4,700 square foot on Terminal 8. The process
So,
is
excuse me, go back to
Sure.
the other slide, the one just before that. Before that. How long would that type of deterioration go on before repairs or renovation would be done?
It's exponential. So what starts as a small crack can continue to be a crack for many years. And then once that crack gets other water intruding into it, the pavement can start to move. That is a challenge with concrete pavement. And our soils that are susceptible to settlement, and then once that crack starts to break down, the repeated traffic from forklifts, from 18-wheelers, just over a fairly quick period of time will make rubble out of it. So you might have a condition like this that develops over 5 to 10 years, and once you reach that 10-year mark with all the heavy traffic that's on it, it turns it to rubble, and so that's what you're seeing right here.
Okay.
I contrast this with our approach to the paving of Cruise Terminal 1 in 2014, and then the more recent 2018 project that we did at Cruise Terminal 3, where we used asphalt pavement. It's a flexible pavement. It's a little bit more forgiving in conditions where we have differential sediment. So most of our future piers and docks will be asphalt paving. A little bit easier to maintain for our team. So the procedure is we identify the rubble areas, the broken areas. We saw cut out, make a clean saw cut and demo that concrete. We dowel in a new rebar and put down the vapor barrier. And then you cast 6 inches of 4,000 pounds per square inch PSI concrete. And you can see it makes a much better driving surface for the operators of those terminals. Should be wrapped up by the end of November. Then another item on the agenda is item 1G. This is for replacement of all the flooring in the second floor of Cruise Terminal 1 for Royal Caribbean. The terminal, it's hard to believe, was put into service December of 2014 when the Oasis came. So the time has really flown by, and you can see that the carpet is showing a lot of stains. It's light carpet, lighter in color, I mean. and it has, it's a rolled carpet as well. So this is not carpet tile where we can pick up a section of tile and replace it with another section. So it's difficult to maintain, and BAC and AJ's facilities team does a great job of trying to prolong the life of this carpet. But as you can see in these photos, it's time to replace it. We do have some darker colored existing rolled carpet in the heavy walkable areas, but that too, you can kind of see it in the photo, is starting to show some permanent stains. Once the stain gets down into the underlayment under the carpet, it becomes very difficult to get that out. So what we are proposing under item 1G, $357,000 to Ivy's Construction under the continuing contract, is to come back with carpet tile. It's a mixture of carpet tile, and the beauty of this system is that each individual tile is a slightly different shade than the other. So if you have carpet tile that has the same shade of blue, if you put a new piece of carpet tile down, it's going to look a different shade than the existing carpet. That's unique about this system is that it has multiple different shades of blue in the carpet system, and then this is a luxury vinyl tile. So we've got 3,815 roughly yards of carpet, and we've got about 8,000 square foot of luxury vinyl tile. It has a nice grayish wood grain look to it. So all the heavy traffic areas will be luxury vinyl tile, and then the seating areas are going to be that blue carpet tile. Those renderings really look nice. So we got some cove base we've got to replace, and we are up against the delivery of the Wonder of the Seas, which we're incredibly excited about, and so we're trying to get this done by November 13th. Let me know if I go too fast, you have any questions. Exploration tower repair is ongoing. You've started to see some of the temporary false work come out of the pond. The contractor is mobilized. This is Ken Pat / NRG Cladding. Those are the contractor and subcontractor doing the work. And they have successfully cast concrete slabs at the base of the tower and have started to erect their scaffolding. So that scaffolding will cover the entire southern face of Exploration Tower so that they can remove these panels one by one and effect the repair that's been proposed. You'll see a material elevator's been erected here in this area if you drive by there. So we're still planning to be completely done with that by February of 2023.
Bill, how does hurricane season crank into this?
So the timing is actually worked out quite well for us. This scaffolding system is designed and signed and sealed by a Florida PE to withstand hurricane force pressures. The benefit is that we are now in October, and so hurricane season thankfully is coming to a close, and we are all grateful for the fact that the heavy lifting of not heavy, these panels are aluminum, but they're quite heavy, cumbersome, and sail-like when you detach them from the face of the building, that the majority of that work is going to be taking place during non-hurricane season. So that's just something for us to be grateful for.
I mean, next spring it starts again.
Yeah, so we'll be done by February.
Okay.
Right before the Artemis launch?
No comment, sir. So excellent question, and the timing has just worked out to our benefit from that standpoint. Knock on wood. So I'm going to go around the port aerial here and just give you an idea, a quick overview of other projects that we have going on. And Commissioner Justice, to your point, although we do have the $76 million budget, which is a robust budget, I understand it is technically lower than prior years where we've had $90 million on average. We just have a lot of really neat smaller projects that make up that total $76 million. So it's going to keep myself and my team incredibly busy, and we're looking forward to that. To start off with cruise projects, we've got item 1F. It is the design of the Terminal 10 canopy replacement. We did have some additional fabric canopy rip-off during the passing of Ian, so we're not replacing that canopy. We're going to launch this design that's going to do a forensic engineering analysis of the existing canopy structure, the columns, the foundations, to see what we can repurpose, what we can reuse, and just add on to. We've got Terminal 1 gangway repairs that we've been talking about. Those cylinders are being fabricated and due to be delivered just in time for Christmas. So it's going to be a late December delivery of those cylinders, and then we'll proceed with install. Terminal 1 carpet, we did just discuss as we did the Terminal 8 and 5 apron repairs. Moving into cargo projects, North 3 continues to make excellent progress. Again, the milestone of hitting the dredging in December is going to be a good thing for all to see. North 4 design is still underway, and I know we're pending feedback from several grant applications to help fund that project. North Cargo Berth 5 fenders, we're waiting on delivery of some fender materials that continue to suffer from supply chain logistics challenges that we're having. South Cargo Pier 1 and 2 rehab, we hope to come back to you with a recommendation for award either at the October 26th or perhaps even the December 7th commission meeting. So that will still happen by the end of this year. And then the LMH 600 mobile harbor crane purchase is highlighted by that little square. Some general port projects, berth box, O&M dredging. Captain Murray referenced that in his report. We continue to work with the Corps and our sampling subcontractor, Anamar, to make sure the sampling and testing is on schedule for us to meet. The mobilization of the Corps' O&M dredger that's going to happen third quarter, roughly into the fourth quarter of next year. Updated port aerials. I can gladly say that things worked out on Saturday when we had the 7-ship day. I believe they flew them at about 9:30 a.m. So we might have only captured 6 ships in port at that time. But I'm just really grateful that the weather cleared up. That's one benefit of that storm. It sucked out all of the bad weather. So we had a clear day. We had a 6-ship day, and we were able to get the aerial company to fly on Saturday.
Can't you Photoshop the 7th ship?
Probably could. Yeah. I won't, well, I'll have to, as you look in the background of this aerial, you'll notice a certain vessel at the mouth of the channel, and that vessel was captured by the aerial vehicle, but not exactly where it's currently shown. So little secret there. The ship was almost into the port, but not quite there, so we may have graphically nudged it into the mouth of the port. We'll see if...
If it's within 3 miles, doesn't that mean it's in the port?
Exactly. Yes. So we'll see if we happen to capture that 7th ship on approach. If we did, certainly it'll be in the photo. Great news there. Vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan. This is item 1I on the agenda. We're really excited about this effort with Jacobs. It's going to be done according to Resilient Florida Statute 380.093, so it'll be using the NOAA 2017 curve data, that study, and it'll have planning horizons in 2040 and 2070. So it's a 2-part study. The vulnerability assessment is based on flood risk and sea level rise, and it's going to study all of the port's infrastructure to determine where our vulnerabilities are and detail that. Then the second part of that plan, and probably the final third of the effort, is the adaptation plan. So that adaptation plan is going to roll that vulnerability assessment into what do we need to do with our infrastructure and in what year or what decade, if you will. So that will really be a key tool for us to be able to apply for specific grant funding that's geared toward coastal resiliency. Sir.
So there's some greater power standards that we're using to benchmark, but also construction, current and best materials and all that sort of stuff. I mean, there's so many variables that are in this thing. It's almost hard to get your mind around it.
It is. It's a complex discussion, and what we remind ourselves is that we still have to deal with sea level of today. So as much as we would like to plan the next berth 5 feet higher than where it currently is, that would block shell doors, luggage doors from the current sea level, current cruise ships. So we have to be mindful of that. I've heard some interesting stories of Port Miami designing bulkheads so that you can add in the future another 5 feet of concrete on top of the existing wharf facility. That presents challenges when you get to the building and the finished floor. How do you accommodate that? But it goes beyond just the main terminal, main structures. It affects sanitary sewer lift stations, backup generators, Mark LaRusso's critical IT infrastructure, our camera systems. There's things that you can do with other pieces and parts of your infrastructure rather than just thinking about elevating everything. You can harden, and not everything needs to be done tomorrow. That's the beauty of the Florida statute that has the planning horizons in 2040 and 2070, is we've got time to plan accordingly to figure out what we need to elevate, what we need to harden, again, by what decade. And we have an excellent team assigned to that. Jacobs brought their A team, as they always do. But the gentleman that we've been working with has done these studies for Miami Beach, Key West, Jacksonville Energy Authority, several military bases around the state of Florida. So I know we have a quality team that's going to be spearheading that project. Talked about the 401 bridge painting, that's item 1H. And then some recreation projects. We're really excited about the grant that was won for the pavilion and the campsite. And we continue to move forward in a planning phase with right-sizing the pavilion and the camp store. Then we've got the exploration tower repairs we talked about, and Rodney Ketchum boat ramp. It's in need of attention. We have a few different options that we're currently considering to renovate that ramp, but we will be moving forward with design of that hopefully at the October 26th meeting or maybe the December 7th meeting. And that is my presentation. Thank you, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Bill? Thank you, Bill. Good report as always. Next is the consent agenda. There does not appear to be any public comment for that. So, Commissioner Lloyd, I'll start with you. Do you have any items that you wish to pull on the consent agenda?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hadaway.
2A.
2A. Commissioner Justice.
3A, and since we really haven't had anything said about the public safety, I'm gonna pull all of those for just a general, what's changed from last year, what we're voting on kind of thing. So 4A, B, C, and D.
And I have none to pull. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve consent item 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, 1F, 1G, 1H, 1I, 1J, 5A, and 5B.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The consent items have been approved. Commissioner Hadaway, item 2A, finance.
I just wanted to quickly clarify that we're not taking on new debt. This is just renewing the existing line, and I just sort of wanted to make that clear in the record and give you 2 seconds to speak to it. And I should have done it earlier, and I apologize.
Commissioner Hadaway, you said it exactly correct. It's just renewing an existing line of credit. We're not incurring any additional debt.
Perfect. That's all I had. I'll move to approve 2A.
And second discussion, that been a motion made, second
I'll second.
discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's approved. Item 3A, Commissioner Justice.
Yes, it's been a while since Mr. LaRusso's been up at the podium here, so I think it would be good to have him come on up. And actually, this is a significant project, and just give us a couple words on exactly what we're updating here. And
Yes, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mark LaRusso. I'm the Senior Director of Information Technology Services. So this project scope is to recapitalize about 430 video surveillance cameras throughout the port. So we've come to you with some projects in the past. Those have primarily focused on exterior sites along the channel, where this one is really focused on the facilities, both interior and exterior. So these cameras, they support our public safety and security mission here at the port. Peter Bergeron, BCSO, some of our other law enforcement partners, they're our customer. We provide these services to them to, and the technology to them to utilize. So really good project. The cameras that we're replacing have been in service from, some of them are approaching 7 years old. So from a technology standpoint, we really need to get some new technology in there. As things age, they become more prone to failure. So, I think, with Hurricane Ian coming in over the past week, the system was utilized for that event as well. Captain Murray highlighted that to me over the weekend, that it was really useful from a remote perspective to start damage assessment and before we even have boots on the ground. So really critical to our operation.
How long is it gonna take to do that?
So this project is going to go over 2 fiscal years, fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24. So we're splitting it up between the two.
Thank you.
I will say that the new system is much better than what we had before you had to be in front of a screen here in the building. Now you can access remotely, and if there's a report of damage at Cruise Terminal 3, you can zoom right in and see it from any location, which is where we need to be. Yeah, exactly.
Great, thanks. With that, I'll ask for approval of consent agenda item 3A. Move.
Second.
And moved and second for approval of consent item 3A. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The item is approved.
Thank you.
Public safety for A, B, C, D.
Yes, I know normally we would be having, we have had a meeting before this with security and have this discussed and since we understand why we couldn't have it today, given the sheriff and everybody else's activities. So, Pete, if you could just give us a couple of words again on what's changed from last year, big picture, high level, and these items here would be appreciated. That so the
Yes, sir.
public can understand what we're signing up for and the increases and all that stuff.
All right, Commissioners, good morning. So our security program is mandated by the federal regulations, 33 CFR 105, which is regulated by the Coast Guard. And so it mandates that there's only 2 positions in the port that we need to operate. One is the owner-operator, who's Captain Murray, and the other is the facility security officer, who's me. And I can't do the job myself. So what these 4 approvals do is they provide the security program that we need in order to operate the port. So Brevard County Sheriff's Office and Canaveral Fire Rescue. And so these contracts enable us to do the fire academy. We put lifeguards down at Jetty Park, and we embark and debark 3.7 to 6 million passengers a year. We have immediate safety and medical response. I bet we have the best 911 response to any facility or place in the county. Usually it's less than a minute, and you don't even need 911. If I pick up the phone, ask for a sheriff or ask for a fire representative, it's there in less than a minute to provide support. We do all the medical evacs off of the piers when the cruise ships come in and provide LE services to the campground, waterways, the boat ramps, the beach, and all the facilities around Port Canaveral. And so the detailed deputy contract that you're going to sign, that provides us to give the deputies that we put into the terminals to embark and debark the passengers. Every time we have a special event, Thunder on the Bay, fireworks, Artemis launches ×2 that didn't go off, we have to get detailed deputies to support it, to do 6 cargo cruise ships days and keep 200,000 people safe in the port if they come in or traffic. And then again, just to give you an idea, so for the last month, we did the first certification of an LNG from a facility to a boat. And that all had to be approved by CFR. They were the approving authority, and then they observed it was all done safely. It wasn't the Coast Guard, it was the fire department who did it. So we did the first successful transfer of LNG from a facility to the QLNG 4000, which then allows us to service the cruise industry much more efficiently with LNG for the Wish and the Mardi Gras. And at the same time, as you mentioned, we had to prepare for 2 Artemis launches while all this was going on, and they didn't go off, but we were still ready. We can't say it's not going to happen. We have to mobilize everybody to support the launches. And then we immediately rolled into Hurricane Ian. So then for the last 2 weeks, we had to do all the preparation, the arrival of the hurricane, and then the post-event reconstituting the port and getting it back operation. So these 4 things, these 4 contracts that we have before you now, enable us to do that for the next year. Any specific questions?
How much more of it does it will be paying than last year, roughly?
For percentage, I don't know
Yeah,
what the increase is, Mike? For the contract, was it 3%?
Yeah, I think fully staffed compared to fully staffed 1 year, last year to this year, about 4.1%.
Yeah.
Okay, so given the inflation rate, that's not bad.
That's not bad, absolutely. And if you look at it as a percentage, as security as a percentage cost of total revenue, I mean, it actually goes down since the revenue's gone up so significantly next year. Our percentage of the total revenue is actually less this year than it was last year.
And I think we also always get told that compared to other ports, our sheriff's a pretty good deal.
Yes, sir, our sheriff's department is second to none. Same thing with the fire department.
Yeah, but okay, I appreciate that.
Yes,
That's
sir.
good. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
I'll move to ask for approval of consent items for A, B, C, and D, and thank you very much for the presentation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion's approved. Are those items? Public comment. Shirley Buchanan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Captain Murray.
Have you with us?
I'm so glad I could be here. Excuse me for my lateness. We had another meeting ahead of this. This is just a public thank you to Captain Murray and the port for our turning lane that you gave us at Victory. Lester would have been here, himself to thank you, but you got me instead. So I want to thank you. And also on Friday morning, a thank you to Bill and AJ for being out there at Victory so bright and early, checking out to see if you had any damage. And thank you, Diane, for that follow-up call asking me if there was anything that we needed. It is so greatly appreciated. And thank you so much.
We thank you for being here. You're the better half of that team.
Can I elaborate,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah. Just to describe that turning lane, when we go into Terminal 1 or Cruise Terminal 3, there are dedicated turning lanes to get into the parking garages. And as Terminal 3 got up and active and more people started moving down there during cruise operations, we realized there was no dedicated turning lane into Victory. So we ended up with a makeshift operation with cones in the road and a BCSO officer out there and created a turning lane. And what we've done is finalize that into a painted permanent turning lane so that Lester's group has a dedicated lane where they can get off the road and not get caught up in the traffic with the other traffic we have heading toward Jetty Park and Cruise Terminal 3. So that was just completed last week.
Good accommodation to them. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Lloyd.
Yeah, I'll say a little something. I went with staff over to see the Liebherr plant over in Germany, and it's very interesting, the process. There's lightning protection that's discussed. There's wind loading that's discussed. And it's kind of interesting sitting around a table in Germany talking about hurricanes, and then as soon as we get back, we have a hurricane. So there's a certain protocol with the cranes on how you prepare them, and it was really a quality facility. You really have a lot of respect for the way the German people make those cranes. So thank you to Liebherr, and staff did a great job. Veronica's not here. She's probably upstairs watching this, but she is a good member of the team. She asks really tough questions, and I'm glad I'm on her side and not the other side. But she's an excellent employee. So
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hadaway.
Two things. We welcomed our first group of junior port ambassadors also on the same day as the Lieutenant Governor came. So I want to thank staff. I think having 20 teenagers around heightened everybody's stress level, but it all went off beautifully. The kids had a great day. Special thanks to Commissioner Justice for arranging a Coast Guard visit. Commissioner Lloyd, do you want to do a shout out to the bus company? I can't think of the name.
yeah, BTM, Bill Moberg, who does a lot of our transportation here at the port, helped us out, helped us get the kids from point A to point B.
And donated their services, which
yeah,
was
so
amazing.
He supported our youth, so thank you, Bill.
And that allowed us to have a record number of students this year, representing a record number of schools, and we have public, charter, and private school students. Thank you to Amanda Brailsford Urbina. I don't see her. She came and spoke to the kids about career opportunities here at the port and selecting your career paths, whatever that might be. And thank you to Fish Lips for lunch. So that was a great day. Next, I want to draw everyone's attention to we added to our foreign trade zone today the Melbourne Airport, and I also had the opportunity to attend the Melbourne Regional Chamber leadership retreat last month or the month before. I don't remember anymore. But we really have a growing relationship with Melbourne. We have port partners with sister companies bringing international tourists directly into Brevard County. And I'd like to encourage this commission in the coming years, as these relationships grow, to consider a formal relationship with the Melbourne Chamber. They're certainly interested in having a commissioner liaison in the future. And we have formal relationships. I've been on the Titusville Chamber for the last 4 years, and we have a representative of the Cocoa Beach Chamber, and I think that's the next logical step as we're really building these relationships with both the Melbourne Airport and that chamber. There's great things happening there, so I hope y'all will continue to build those relationships.
Sure. It's a good item. Commissioner Justice.
Yes, last month I had a chance to go. I went to the Space Coast Symposium, spent a morning there. That was highlight of that probably was the Blue Origin update and the incredible, so much more that they're going to come to the table with in the next few years. We're going to, I mean, just like SpaceX is, they're going to do the same thing on top of that. So it's quite a show coming here. Had a chance. I want to shout out for the staff because of I got involved in the because my relationship with the Lockheed Martin's government affairs guys, working out all the details for the multiple launch activities, and ended up at that 600-person reception on that Sunday night at Terminal 3, and great job, staff. That was no small feat to pull all that off, and but ended up hosting, Senator Nelson and Ed and NASA and all that good stuff, and that was quite an event. Terminal 3 has never looked so good. Diane, right? Had a chance, 9/11, of course, I spoke at the Rockledge, and I spoke over to Veterans Memorial Center, and always never forget those events. And then finally, last week I took the Space Coast Daily crowd in Titusville, economic development person who took a port tour and deepened their knowledge of the port, so they're going to carry our water in our county. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have nothing. Our next meeting is Wednesday, October 26th at 9 a.m. The meeting today will be adjourned.